Good morning. Welcome to the third day of April 2018. My name is Kurt Bell, and this is Freeway Bible Study, a daily study of a chapter of the Bible, moving all the way from Genesis through Revelation. We're still early in this project, being in Genesis 26. Isaac and Abimelech. I do this Bible study on the back of my motorcycle, and I've just gassed up here at Costco in Irvine, South Irvine, and I just buttoned up my jacket right here, and we'll get started. This process usually has a bit of a warm-up period, I find. You know, the old Steinbeck, one of my favorite authors, used to have to warm up his writing. I find that this Bible study is kind of the same way. The first few minutes, especially as I'm making my way out of wherever I am, whether it be my apartment complex or here at the gas station, the two places I usually start this video, are kind of, my mind is distracted by all the stopping and starting and all that. So, bear with me as I get going. In this chapter, we're going to learn about the interaction between Abraham's son Isaac, his favored son Isaac, and the King Abimelech, king of the Philistines, leader of the Philistines. And this is all taking place in an area called Gerar. I may not remember that again. Which, I'm a little confused about the geography now. We know that there's an area called Beersheba, which is the same place that Abraham, when he sent Hagar and her son Ishmael out into the wilderness to die, basically. That was Beersheba. It's also the same place that I believe that Abraham had his interaction with Abimelech himself, and Abimelech goes way back. He's a ruler that had a lot of interaction with Abraham, most notably the interaction where he basically tried to take, was in danger. Yeah, he actually took Abraham's wife Sarah into his household, but didn't go so far as to, do the naughty things with her. So he didn't, he got some wrath from the Lord, but not too bad. And we're going to see this happen again now in this chapter, not with Abraham, but with Abraham's son. And this after Abimelech practically pled with Abraham to be fair unto Abimelech and his sons and his grandsons, because Abimelech recognized the one true Lord. I don't know if he would recognize him as the one Lord. Maybe he just saw him as a powerful deity amongst the pantheon of deities. But nevertheless, he certainly recognized Abraham's God, respected him, and realized that he was dealing with a very powerful entity. So he many times goes to, at least 3 times, speaks with Abraham on this topic, and either apologizes for his trespass or pleads with Abraham to not do anything that might invite the wrath of God upon Abimelech and the Philistines. But we see that doesn't do him so well. So finally, Abimelech did get some peace with Abraham in the end. But now with Isaac, it's a whole new thing, because the chapter 26 opens with a famine on the land. And I think I said it. Now see, I've already started to forget it. Was it Gerar or something like that? The famine has arrived. This is not the same. The Bible makes pains to point out that this is not the same famine that Abraham experienced. Duh, right? Abraham's long gone. But there you go. So it's another famine, and it also, the Bible doesn't say anything about Isaac's intent, but you get the impression that Isaac may have intended to go back down to Egypt like his dad did. Remember now, his dad, Abraham, went to, there goes the motorcycle cop right over there. His dad went down to Egypt for the same reason, because of a famine in the land. So maybe that was a common response at the time. If the famine in the plains of Jordan occurs, make your way on down to Egypt land and you can survive it perhaps. Maybe the fertile Egypt, the Nile Delta provided plenty of food, and maybe the Egyptian economy and their system of government was such that they kept enough food in reserve. But God chimes in and tells Isaac, no, I don't want you to go to Egypt. God seems very insistent upon having Isaac remain in this area, the promised land, so to speak, because remember back in the time when Abraham sent his servant off to get a wife for Isaac, and the servant asked if he should bring Isaac with him to find a wife, and Abraham was very clear, no, Abraham must remain. So now Abraham's gone, so God is saying the same thing. Isaac must remain in this land. So instead of going to Egypt, he goes to, he shifts somewhere within Canaan, so to this new area that I mentioned the name right at the beginning, but now I forgot. He moves to a new area, and this is still within the territories of Abimelek. And actually, he's now probably living in the capital city where Abimelech lives, because we know in a minute that Abimelech can look out his window and see Isaac. So I guess that's what's happened. He's moved to the capital city due to the famine. Now here's, excuse me, I'm sorry, hold on. Got a little something in my throat, but I'm okay now. So we're now, Isaac has shifted his location within Canaan. He's very close to Abimelech now, and he's decided to do something that I knew I was forgetting something. There's an important little bit that can be easily missed. When God speaks to Isaac, and tells him, Abraham's story's over. Wow, I can't believe it. So many chapters on Abraham. It's all done. Abraham died in the last chapter. When God speaks to Isaac, he reminds Isaac that he tells him he wants him to remain in this land, and he reminds him that he will make of his seed like the sands of the earth and the stars in the heavens and all that stuff, for the fact that his father was faithful to his commandments, his orders, his laws, and his decrees. And there's a whole list of things, like 4 or 5 things in order. And I can't quite remember what they were. I know law was in there, and I think commandment is in there too. And this is important. So there's 2 points I want to take from that. The first is the fact of God once more promising the stars and the moon to Abraham and now Isaac. And I wonder if there was ever a time when Abraham had Isaac sitting by his side, and before Abraham died, of course, and said, I've got this long relationship with this one God. I wonder if that's how it came about too, because this was a time of lots of gods, and Abraham seems to have settled on one God, and that's, some have argued this is the start of monotheism. He says, I've got this relationship with one God who shows up from time to time, and he's big on the promises, but not so big on the delivery, right? He promised me at an early age, because you remember God visited Abraham at least 4 or 5 times, maybe 6 times, and reaffirmed his covenant that he would make of Abraham, like I said, the stars of the sky. So he said I wonder if he said to Isaac, God's going to show up. He has this way of showing up in my lifetime. Promises. So far all I've got is, you and Ishmael and a few sons from my concubines. But all that came very late in life. Certainly not sands through the hourglass yet. Or I was on the beach of a sand or whatever. And so Isaac's been warned that there's this deity that might show up. And I wonder if he'd met God yet. But I think this might be the first time that he interacts with Isaac directly in the Bible, at least. So that happens here. As Isaac's contemplating going to Egypt, God appears to him and tells him, stay here, and oh, by the way, I'm going to make you of your descendants of the sands of the beach and the stars of the sky. And I wonder if Isaac was like, oh yeah, well, I know who you are. Dad told me about you. I'm sure he didn't say that, lest dare he even think it. The second point I wanted to make at this point was, okay, hold on. told him about the star suit, and he wants him to stay. And now I forgot what it was. There was definitely a second point. Oh, yeah, now I remember. It's the whole thing about God tells Isaac, I'm going to reward you because your father Abraham followed my words, my guidance, my commandments, and my laws, something like that. And when I read that, like the third time, it suddenly jumped out at me. It's like, wait a minute, what laws, what commandments? So far in the Bible, there hasn't been a single thou shalt or thou shalt not. So what guidelines, what laws is God referring to? So did God have some separate chats with Abraham that we don't know about, where he laid down some laws? And what are those? And if Jesus said not a jot or tittle of the law shall be changed, then do we even know what they are? I mean, we know God changes his commandments over time. We saw there's at least two versions of the Ten Commandments, right? The version that Moses brought down on the tablets, and then the version that God himself chiseled out of stone when Moses went back up after he had broken the first set. So what are these laws, I wonder? Don't know. So now we've got Isaac, and he's moved to whatever town Abimelech lives in and runs, and we've got this incident that occurs where Abimelech looks out of his window, and what does he see? Well, in the Old Testament, in the King James version, it says that he spies Abraham sporting with his wife, and of course his wife is Rebekah. We had a whole chapter dedicated to getting Rebekah in the scene. Sporting is the operative word. Sporting, a nice verb. Wonder what that is. In the New International Version, we get a clearer picture. It says that Abimelech spots Isaac caressing his wife. Interesting, the liberties with the speech there, the translators. I wonder what the original was. Did he see him making whoopee with her, or was he simply sitting beside her with his arm over her shoulder, maybe caressing her hair, or was he playing badminton? I don't know. But anyway, Abimelech, sees right through now. He says, "Oh my gosh, this man had told all of us that she was his sister." Now Abimelech, and clearly this is not the case. Now Abimelech should have been, cautious, because this is the son of the same man who pulled the same trick on him before. So imagine, Abraham had pulled up to Abimelech's kingdom, his court, and said, "Greetings, good King Abimelech. I am Abraham, and this is my my sister Sarah." Or back then she was Sarai, I think. And Abimelech got suckered in, and it ended up costing him 1,000 shekels, which is 100 lifetimes fortune, plus slaves and cattle and all stuff. I mean, he really got taken to the bank on that one through no fault of his own, poor Abimelech. And then here we go, a generation later, and Abimelech's still on the throne. Wow, okay, so he must have been a young king when Abraham was around. And now up saunters another guy, and he says, hello, good King Abimelech. I am Isaac, son of Abraham. Remember him? And guess what? This is woman right here. She's my not my wife. I mean my sister. Yeah, my sister. Now, don't you think that Abimelech would have been smarter than that? After all, he's been on the throne for how many decades now? He's clearly a smart guy in a rough time. But he isn't, and he looks out the window and he sees Isaac sporting, quote, air quotes, with Rebekah, and the jig is up, and he calls Isaac up and he says, "What's up, man? Clearly Rebekah is not your sister, she's your wife. Where have I heard this story before?" And he tells, so what does Abimelech do? Remember before when he found out with Abraham that Abraham had been lying and Rebekah and Sarah had been lying? He didn't punish Abraham or Rebekah. He rewarded them, gave them a bribe, because actually God was on Abraham, the liar's side, and he had sealed up Abimelech's wife's womb and all the womb of his slave girl, so he could bear no children. So Abimelech, in a hurry, got together a ransom. He basically held their wombs hostage, got together a ransom to pay it off. Now, he didn't go so far as to even bring Rebekah into his household, so God appears to not explicitly punish him or demand any reward. So Abimelech, instead of giving him riches, he just tells him to go away. Now, Isaac heeds that, and he goes away, but he doesn't go very far. Or is he going to go away further in the next chapter, and a little further, maybe? But he doesn't go very far, and he plants his years, planting, and he brings in a bumper crop of 100-fold increase of his harvest. And he's becoming very rich in cattle and slaves and all the rest. This is a good year for Isaac, and I can't help but think that this good fortune is not in some way guided by the hand of God, who favors Isaac, and just as he favored Abraham as well. And so he had a really good year, and guess what? It's so good that he's just, becoming very wealthy and powerful, and the Philistines are eyeballing this somewhat stranger who's kind of living around the outskirts, not quite in the city, I don't think. He's kind of on the outskirts, and they're getting kind of powerful, and they say, but they know they can't, attack him or anything like that. He's off, after all, he's got one true God on his side. So Abimelech tells him, please go. And he actually explicitly says in, I think in at least the King James edition, you've grown more powerful than us. You need to leave. And so Isaac, I guess to his credit, does. He packs up and leaves. And now he goes to another land, which isn't very far away. It's still within the confines of Abimelech's territory. So he doesn't go very far. He goes to another valley, and he wants to settle there. Now, there were some wells there that Abraham had dug back in the day that apparently the Philistines, the Abimelech's men, had sealed up, had filled up with gravel. So I imagine they weren't wells quite like we think of wells, but they had just maybe like open pits, and they had filled it in for some reason. So there's some confusion. I had a hard time when I first read the King James edition. The way the story reads, it sounds like these wells were dug in. Now I get it. Just now. If I didn't do a careful reading, I would have thought that they were dug by Abraham, and that Isaac really, even though he was told to move, he didn't move, and all he did was unplug the wells. It's not very clear. But then in the New International Edition, it becomes clear that there was this valley where Abraham had dug wells, and then they had left that valley ostensibly to go to the town where Abimelech had his capital. And when Abimelech kicks them out, they go back. And that for some reason, the people of Abimelech had sealed up the wells after Abraham's death in that original land. So imagine there's a valley where Abraham and his family had lived, and they had dug 3 or 4 wells there. And when the famine came after Abraham was dead, Isaac had taken the family to the town where Abimelech had his capital. And when that happened, the people of Abimelech went out and filled in the wells for some reason. Why would they do that? Why don't they just take over the land? I don't know. And then when Isaac comes back to that land, he digs the wells out again, and each of the wells is named. And when he does that, the people of Abimelech, these are the farmers, they look at that and they say, wait, that's our well. The well we just filled in, which clearly you don't have any use for if you just filled it in. And they go through, I think, 2 wells where there's kind of a dispute. They fight over it, and we see one of the wells has changed its name to not Esau, but something with an E on it, which means striving. And that made me think that maybe that the ES part of Esau is the root word that has part that has something to do with striving, because it's again used for this name of the well. They go through 2 wells, and the Isaac's people dig the well. Then the Abimelech's people come and say, no, that's our well, and they take it. And then Isaac's people move on to another. Finally, they get to a 3rd or 4th one down, and they dig I think it's a brand new well. No one strives over that, and they settle on that as their home. Complicated, huh? And at that point then, so Isaac, with all of his people and cattle and slaves and everything is all set up there. Now, who should show up now but Abimelech and his buddy, a friend of his, and one of his commander, the commander of his army. They show up, and Isaac's like, "Hi guys, what are you doing here? Don't you hate me? Why are you here?" And they say that Abimelech comes back, and this is so characteristic for Abimelech right now, because he must be thinking a lot about how the God of Isaac, the God of Abraham, is real, and he really fears him and he respects him, and he's been worried about it for a long time. We make him think, why didn't he do something about his men of his sealing up the wells that Isaac kept digging? But anyway, he comes in and he says, "Listen," this is Abimelech talking, "I know that your God is the one true God, and I want you and I to have peace. There's no reason for you and I to have bitter feelings. So let's make peace." So they have a little party, they drink and have a good evening, and they sleep, and the next morning they all agree in whatever way the people would agree back in those old days, some secret handshake or something like that. They all agree to be friends, and they go their way. And that's the end of this particular chapter, although not quite. Remember how back a few chapters back there was, I think it was Genesis maybe 23, where I mentioned that there was like an addendum that was added at the end. That was the bit about the lineage of Abraham's brother. I think his name is Micah, something like that, and that led to the birth of Rebekah. It's a very strange thing. It's like tacked on right at the end of the chapter, and and Abraham's brother Micah gave birth. His wife gave birth to whatchamacallit, and Annie, and whatever the heck, and who gave birth to who begat this other one, and the Hoot and whatever, and finally it winds up in Rebekah. And I was like, what the heck? Why was that there? And then it shows up like 2 chapters later when we meet Rebekah, and I go, oh, okay, it made sense. So it almost sounded like someone went back and added that in to try and feign some continuity to the stories, like someone would do in a sloppy way if they didn't have a lot of time. Likewise, right at the end of this chapter 26, you see the same thing again, and there is a little biography. I believe it's Esau's lineage. I think that's what it is. So I'm gonna bet that in a chapter or 2 we're gonna see somewhere that will get used, and it makes me wonder if it was the same person who did. If we see that happening, if it was the same person, because it seems awfully damn convenient and not very creative to just go ahead and say, I could make this story flow better if chapter 23 was forecasting chapter 26. So I'll just go in and add a little paragraph or a sentence or 2 at the end to do so. Yeah, convincing in fact, not very impressive, not very impressive. Convincing in principle, not very impressive in fact. We'll see what happens. Maybe it won't. Okay, so that's it. A pretty interesting chapter. A really hard one to keep in my mind, and it actually pulled out a lot of tangential thoughts. I'm finding Facebook is a great place to take my considerations and throw them out, see what people have to say. Anyway, thanks for joining me, everybody. Have a great day. Make it a good life. Take care.